Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Isn't it a beautiful day in East Tennessee today, right? Beautiful, beautiful. I'm honored to welcome everyone here today for our Vision 2020 event, which commemorates the historic completion of major cleanup activities at the East Tennessee Technology Park. My name is Joe Aylor, and I'm the Chief of Staff for UCOR. While I've only been in this role a couple of months, the East Tennessee Technology Park is near and dear to my heart. Like many of you, we may have family members who have spent their entire careers out here, and you yourselves may have worked here. My grandfather worked at the powerhouse for 17 years. I have an aunt that spent a long time of her career out here and an uncle that spent 25 years out here. Like myself, I graduated from the University of Tennessee in the early 2000s, and I got my career start out here. In fact, I spent 6 years in many of the buildings that are now on the ground. This event certainly means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to you as well, so I want to thank you all for attending today. We have two wonderful events planned today, including many distinguished guests, which you see here. Jay will introduce them shortly. Our main event will start in a few minutes, but before we get started, I want to cover a few housekeeping items specifically related to safety and some COVID items. While we have obviously done what we can to maintain proper spacing and give you enough room to move around, we would ask that you respectfully wear your mask throughout the duration of this event as well as the main event that will take place later. The exceptions to that would be if you are speaking, if you're greater than 6 feet from other individuals, or if you are eating or drinking. Speaking of masks, you should see little goodie bags in your chairs. In those goodie bags, you will find an agenda which covers today's events. You'll also find some limited edition Vision 2020 masks that we encourage you to wear so that we all maintain some consistency and continuity. And then you'll also find a very nice commemorative coin signifying the accomplishment of Vision 2020. It's a beautiful coin that was designed by our graphic designers in-house, so we hope that you appreciate that. And then last, I would like to point out the restrooms. Off to my right, your left, you'll see some temporary facilities that can be used. And then up the hill in the K-25 History Center, we have some permanent facilities, and those will be available for the reception. With that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Frankly, in this town, he needs no introduction, but Mr. J. Mullis. Mr. J. Mullis is the manager of the Department of Energy Oak Ridge Office of Environmental Management. He's been a phenomenal partner to UCOR, but even more so, he's been a phenomenal partner to our community and to our workforce. He has been instrumental in the success of the work in getting us to Vision 2020. And he's played such a big part in it. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. J. Mullis.
Excuse me. Good afternoon and welcome. I've heard Joe talking about kind of reminiscing in his times here, and so I thought I'd take a minute to do the same. When I came to DOE in the 1995, my first office was right out there in K1001. And I came here from the Navy, and the building I had at the Navy, of course, we tore that down after I left the Navy. K1001's been torn down. K33, where I had my other office, has been torn down. Then I moved into town, and we tore down 55 Jefferson. So if I come to your office building, you better watch out. That's what I evidently bring to the table, is tearing buildings down. But for me, it's a pretty big deal out here. I've seen 20 years of what the department has done, and so this is pretty emotional for me to be out here. I do want to mention as well my good friend Jim Kapotic. Many of you probably remember Jim. He was a dear friend of mine and spent a lot of time out here. Part of the reason we're here today is because of the way Jim got the project underway out here and the years he spent out here working as well. So. Thank you. I certainly miss Jim quite a bit personally, and wished he could have been here for today. So with that, welcome everybody here. I worked with my good friend Johnny Moore over at the lab to make sure we had the good weather this morning. I certainly didn't want to repeat a Vision 2016 when it was about 1,000 degrees. So Johnny, thank you for that as well. So we have several in the audience I'd like to take a moment to recognize. Thank you to DOE's top leadership for being here, certainly Secretary Brouillette, Undersecretary DeBar down in the audience, Ike White, my boss, the person I have to impress the most today, Carmelo Melendez, right over there, who will hopefully be turning the site over to in the near future. Certainly want to thank our congressional appropriators. Can't say enough about the assistance they've given us in financing the work. So certainly Senator Alexander and Representative Fleshman. And thank you to the state and community leaders for being with us today, starting with Governor Lee, who's up here on the stage with us, Senator Yeager, who I saw out in the audience, Representative Reagan, who I saw, Representative Coffey, who I saw earlier. There you are, sir. Thank you so much for being here. Certainly Mayor Gooch as well, and the city council members and other members, elected members of the community, including Knoxville and the surrounding communities and counties as well. And I want to thank our labor leaders for the amazing partnership. We certainly could not do the work we do today without labor. They're who actually have to come out here and do the job every day. I have a tremendous amount of respect for them and certainly want to thank them as well for the partnership in developing the best workforce in the country, in my opinion. I also see former DOE Deputy Secretary Daniel Poneman in the office, or in the audience, not in the office. It makes me think back to the last time you were in town, which I think was back in 2013, and we were taking down the last piece of building K-25, which was behind us. It's special to have you come back here after 7 years and be part of this, so thank you for coming into town for that, to witness it. So appreciative to everybody that has been able to make it today and take time. These are weird times, but I certainly appreciate those who came out here and those who are in our virtual audience as well. Vision 2020, of course, was our ambitious goal to complete major cleanup at the East Tennessee Technology Park by the end of the year. Today is the result of decades of planning, hard work, and innovation. This isn't just an accomplishment for the current workers we have today, but to many before us who laid the groundwork for us to get here. Today marks the removal of every deteriorated and contaminated facility and structure that we had on site. And it removes the need for millions of dollars in oversight costs that were costing the American taxpayer. Today, our workers can now say they were the first in the world to achieve something. How many people can say that, right? That's a source of pride and something they can always take with them, since this was the first time a gaseous diffusion plant has ever been completely remediated in the world. So that's a big deal for our workers and for myself. Today shows the value and impact of DOE's environmental management program. We're removing risks and giving the community back the land so that they can reuse it to forge a new future. I think about how special and rewarding it is to be able to celebrate this accomplishment with all of you and them. We're celebrating the efforts of thousands of people over a span of 20 years. Some people don't see the end of an effort of this size, but we're fortunate ones that can be here to see the end of such an effort. The one thought I want to emphasize above all else is that this achievement is only possible together. A theme that resonates in everything we do here in Oak Ridge is partnerships. Partners have been foundational to our success. I see many of our partners in the audience today who have enabled this monumental accomplishment, so thank you for being here today and for being a good partner. We certainly wouldn't be here today without the amazing men and women in our workforce who come to work every day, tackle complex projects, overcome harsh conditions, and perform their job safely. Thank you to those men and women and their labor leaders. Thank you to our cleanup contractor for their excellence and performance and innovative approaches and perseverance. Thank you to our appropriators who believed in us and provided the means to deliver the job. In turn, we worked hard to be worthy of your investments and to be good stewards of the tax dollars that you entrusted us with, delivering projects ahead of schedule and under budget. We couldn't have reached the... My college speech teacher would have told me to take the pregnant pauses, correct? As an engineer, I'm not always good at that, but I will try. We couldn't have reached this day without the support of DOE headquarters. The priority you placed on seeing this through and completing this effort We're also grateful for our partnerships with local governments, state leadership, and our regulators. Finally, we wouldn't be here today without strong leadership of previous managers, despite what folks may tell you, I couldn't have gotten here by myself, who forged the way through partnerships that helped us bring us to this place. So I want to recognize Gerald Boyd, who I saw in the audience, that was a previous manager, Steve McCracken, John Eschenberg, Mark Whitney, and Sue Cange. All that to say, each of you in attendance has played a role and helped us reach this historic milestone. Each of you should be proud for your part in this world first achievement. Next up, we have a very special video that does a great job of telling the story and how far we've come. And I'm happy to see that the story told by some of the people that helped get us here and who are in the audience today. You're the first people to ever see this, so we're excited to unveil that for you now.
The K-25 facility, after closure, was left in a deteriorating condition.
It was a bunch of shut down 1950s era facilities that were all falling down. I mean, literally falling down.
The roof was beginning to deteriorate.
Debris all throughout the building.
Water and wildlife entering the buildings.
Radioactive material,
metal, plastic,
rusted material,
contaminated items.
Lots of contamination.
So we had to do something. We were probably one tornado away from a pretty significant environmental problem.
December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Away, these views of the most concentrated release of explosive energy in the history of mankind. Work on the bomb went steadily forward in closely guarded plants in New Mexico, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Hanford, Washington.
I think we all know that Oak Ridge came to be for a national security reason. It was during the World War II that it became obvious that there needed to be a technology to help end that war.
We were afraid that some other countries would attack, so the Manhattan Project was born.
Uranium had to be enriched for the first time in history of mankind. Plutonium had to be produced for the first time in the history of mankind.
The construction started on the K-25 site in 1943.
And in 18 months had built a one-of-a-kind facility and the largest industrial facility anywhere in the world.
After the war was over, the Cold War started.
Soviet policies clashed with those of the United States.
So it continued to operate right up into the 80s as a means of enriching uranium. It was the only method for enriching uranium that the U.S. had at the time.
The buildings were operational into the early 80s. In 85, they were put in standby, and then in 87, they were shut down.
I first learned about the shutdown of K-25 before I had moved back to Oak Ridge. Overnight, thousands of people lost their jobs, and I remember my parents being very concerned about the impacts it would have on the city. So it was a big deal. It was a very big concern.
What in the world are we going to do next? I thought the site would always be there. And when it was obvious that the site was no longer necessary, then we were trying to figure out what's next. I was the site manager. I was in charge of 5,000 people. You know, what's the next activity for the families and the community? So it was a lot of discussion, a lot of blueprints, a lot of soul searching.
Obviously, we'd seen thousands of jobs disappear because of the decommissioning of the plant, but we also had the opportunity to put a lot of people to work, taking the plant down and restoring the property for the community. Something had to be done. We had massive industrial facilities loaded up with processed gas equipment, which contained highly enriched uranium within that.
We're going to leave them as is and let the rust and degraded facilities damage the environment and, the community?
we have to clean this up. We've got to get rid of all this. We have to turn all this back to the community and let the community reuse it.
So in the late 80s, we made a decision to proceed with cleanup.
This used to be a laboratory. We tore this building down. It was contaminated inside. We'll take confirmatory measurements and samples to make sure it's absolutely clean. And then once it's clean, it'll be free released and then back to public use. We actually have torn down hundreds and hundreds of buildings on site. Some small, like this one. This is actually a small building. Some large. It's almost a mile long and 4 stories high.
When the K-25 building was built, it was the largest building in the world.
The site was over 5 million square feet.
Massive. It's just huge.
Had approximately 45 acres of building under one roof.
In order to get that building down was going to take a lot of effort to make sure you did it safely.
So it was a big job to take it down. We actually began the process working from the inside and found that to be too difficult. Actually had a worker accident that was very serious.
The hardest day I had was the day that one of our workers fell through a floor, fell 30 feet to the floor below. In all rights, should not have lived through that. Most people don't survive falls like that.
We actually had to spend a lot of money on the building, making it safe to take down. So we stepped back and completely revamped our plans to stabilize the building and then demolish it from the outside.
So right around 1999, 2000, we actually started with some work in the first 3 gaseous diffusion buildings out there, with taking a lot of the heavy equipment out. In 2006, the first large enrichment building was actually taken down. 2016, we took the last enrichment building down, and between 2016 and 2020, we've taken down the remaining structures at the facility or at the site.
So Oak Ridge has been kind of a trailblazer, particularly when it comes to the cleanup business.
It's the first time in the history of the world that a complete gaseous diffusion complex has been cleaned up and turned over.
We really were the first program to take on such a large-scale cleanup effort and such a unique cleanup effort. We were the first program to assemble the necessary workforce to get that done. And we're certainly the first program to have such success with the conversion of a site that was originally a national liability, costing about tens of millions of dollars simply to maintain, and converting it into something that is of great value to the community.
We've accomplished this 4 years ahead of schedule, $80 million under budget, and have saved $500 million on our environmental liabilities for this country. That is a huge savings. How often is it you hear about a federal project that's ahead of schedule and under budget? That in of itself sets it apart.
Nobody had the recipe or the blueprint for accomplishing that, so Oak Ridge did it.
It gave me a real heartfelt gratitude to see what we were able to accomplish and what it means to the community of Oak Ridge.
If you come to Oak Ridge and come to the K-25 site now, what you see unfolding is a future industrial park where you can get on a mountain bike at lunch break and drive tens and tens of miles, or you can go visit a national park.
We had, in my view, an incredible team that helped put the plan together, helped carry the plan out.
We've really gone from a facility that was behind a fence, presenting hazards, presenting security issues, to something that's of great value to the community.
It was a joint effort between the contractors, the DOE, the regulators, the community. Everybody had a role to play, and everybody played their part and did it well.
Doing this type of building demolition work and equipment demolition work takes a very highly skilled workforce.
What I would say to the workforce is thank you for the hard work you've done out there. We could not be here without you. I come to work every day. The reason I come to work every day, the reason the feds are here is not just because we show up in the federal building, but it's for the work that gets accomplished out of the site.
I can't tell you how proud I am of this workforce. And you know, the money shot is always the building falling down or the loading of the debris, but the guys that are doing the hard work that's never seen or appreciated, all those people don't get a lot of credit, because without everybody working together, we wouldn't have been able to accomplish this.
The pride that I have in our workforce, our management, the team, we wouldn't have been where we're at right now. They're amazing.
All the engineering in the world can't get accomplished if you don't have the craft that's out in the field doing it.
The men and women that were in maintenance, that were in engineering, that were in what we call operations analysis, the facility managers, the shift workers. Without all of them, none of this would have been possible. You know, you can sit down and have the best laid plans, but actually people and relationships are what really makes things happen.
This is like the final chapter of the book, and we want it to be a happy ending, you know, and then we'll have a sequel that talks about reindustrialization and moving forward to create more jobs here in Oak Ridge.
Because of the site's history, it has a lot of features that make it uniquely attractive for industrial redevelopment. Obviously, we're able to provide massive amounts of electrical power to the site. We have infrastructure such as barge access, rail access, proximity to the interstate, that all are features that should make it attractive for redevelopment.
I think the community is going to gain a great deal from the completion of that site. The land itself could be reutilized for economic purposes for the community.
I remember the first time I came in, this building was up, this building was up, this building was up, this building was up, and this was also up. And now it's just evolving into the future.
The first time I came on site, it was exciting. I had goosebumps. It was magical. You know, it's kind of like the birds were flying, you know, the leaves were moving. It was a beautiful site. It was gorgeous. No longer is this going to be a secret city. It's going to be a city where everyone's going to know where we're at and what we're doing.
I think Oak Ridge has a really significant legacy. It's the origins of the nuclear era. It has played a role for the past several decades in preserving the security of the nation.
This is the first successful decommissioning, demolition of any diffusion plant in the world. I can remember back in 1964, the first building I worked in was right at that telephone pole right there. Little did I know I'd be standing here today celebrating the fact that it's no longer here.
It's just been a really unique place for America.
This is home. I'm at home. Right now, I am at home.
Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Tennessee Governor Bill Lee. Mr. Governor, we appreciate all the efforts you've made to be with us today. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It is my honor, sir, to be here, and certainly honored to be here with so many who have been so engaged in this incredibly important project. Senator, Secretary, Congressman, Mayor, I'm grateful to be up here with you all, but let me first just say thank you to the men and women who have put their heart and soul and lives and sweat and energy into this project. This is an incredibly important, great day for Oak Ridge and for all of the volunteer state. What you all and we are together celebrating here today is a culmination of great foresight. But it's the culmination of those men and women. Let me say first to the men and women that put on their boots and their hard hats and their gloves and the craftsmen, the workforce, the skilled labor that got out there and made this happen over the decades that it had to happen. So as a person who is an engineer but was previously engaged in the construction industry for 35 years, your pause at under budget and under time was entirely appropriate. Because if you've been in the construction industry as I've had, under budget and under time they rarely occur independently. They even more rarely occur both at the same time. And for that to happen in a project like this that's never been done before in this country is, to me, an example not only of the hard work that's been done here, but of the spirit that can only be accomplished with American exceptionalism. That's a theme that's run throughout Oak Ridge its entire existence, and that theme runs true through this project as well. So those under budget and in time, before time, equates to real dollars to taxpayers. $80 million under budget, $500 million of money not invested that will not have to be invested in environmental efforts. So those are important milestones, and you're to be congratulated for that. It is a testament to what can happen when partnerships work well together. Federal, state, local partnerships, public, private partnerships, all of that comes together to have a successful outcome. And we celebrate an incredibly successful outcome here today. And it's not only something to celebrate, but it has a huge impact on this local economy. So as the governor of the state, I am terribly interested in local economies and in our state's economy. Certainly in this very unusual season that we find ourselves in, restarting an economy or certainly revving it back up. By the way, I think I saw Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally sitting back there, and I'm not sure, yes, sir, and I'm not sure we acknowledged him, but you know, Lieutenant Governor has been, ever since I became governor, for decades, he's been an advocate for what happens right here because he's from this community and from this area. And ever since I came into office, I want you all to know that he is a relentless advocate for the things that happen in this region, and to his credit. So I want to make sure that that the folks know that you're sitting here. But as we work together, and that what made me think of that was as we work together to get our state's economy back on track, what's happening here is really, really important. It creates an environment for, Oak Ridge is already a great place for businesses to be, but it creates an environment for more economic activity, for more companies to come here, for more jobs to be created in this community, for more lives to be changed by the economic activity that will be that will be coming this way as a result of what's been done here today. So we're grateful for that. Not only that, but it protects assets in our community, valuable resources, environmental resources set aside as a result of this project that incredibly important for our state, and at the same time protects the historical legacy of what's happened here in Oak Ridge. We in Tennessee, you in particular who have been engaged in what happens in Oak Ridge, you all know that this place is incredibly important in the history of America. Americans may not quite fully realize just how valuable Oak Ridge has been to America's existence and to her security. And it took great foresight, that exceptional American foresight that I mentioned a second ago, to create the Manhattan Project. It took great foresight and exceptional thinking to create what's happening at ORNL, any portion of the great work that's currently happening in Oak Ridge now. And it took great foresight to imagine how the only diffusion plant in this world, in this nation, could be taken apart when it had never been done before. It took great foresight to do that. This place has a history of exceptional foresight and execution that is incredibly invaluable to this country. And it's exciting to me to think about what this opens up for the next wave of exceptional foresight that'll happen right here in Oak Ridge that will be the next important step in the security and the defense of this country and for the development of innovation and technology that's yet to be seen. It'll happen right here in Oak Ridge. I know it will because of the people that are here today and that have been involved in this. So I'm very grateful, honored to be a part of it and just to celebrate with you what's happening. Thank you.
Please help me welcome Energy Secretary Dan Brouillette. We're excited to have you here with us to witness this major DOE accomplishment. You've provided us years of support and leadership from headquarters to help get us here, so welcome, sir.
Thank you, Jay. What an incredible celebration. It is an absolute pleasure to be with all of you and such a distinguished group of individuals for this exciting event. Today is truly a collaborative event, as we've heard from some of the speakers and we saw in the video. And while this is a Department of Energy project, it's all of you, from Governor Lee to the Lieutenant Governor, your colleagues in state and local government, to the many leaders in labor and industry. All of you played an important role in bringing this day to fruition. And of course, any good team needs key contributors. So I want to express my heartfelt thanks and appreciation to Senator Alexander, Congressman Fleshman. They are our absolute strongest supporters in Washington, D.C. They are truly national champions, and we simply wouldn't be here today without the funding and the advocacy that they provided all throughout this particular project and our cause to our department. Also with us, as was mentioned earlier, is Undersecretary of Science Paul DeBar, who heads up the EM program, along with a very senior key advisor, and that's Ike White. Ike's got a long history here, and Jay as well. Jay, thank you for your leadership. You all are doing amazing work on environmental management, achieving significant milestones, not only here at Oak Ridge, but all across the country. And it'd also be remiss if I didn't mention the thousands of workers, literally thousands of workers here at Oak Ridge that worked on this decades-long project. We thank you all for your hard work. Let's please give them another round of applause. Today, you stand shoulder to shoulder with those Oak Ridge workers who came before you in etching your mark on history. But making history is not a new experience here. Oak Ridge was built to achieve a world first in support of the Manhattan Project. It was here that Enrique Fermi and so many others, including the now famous Girls of Atomic City, toiled in secrecy to achieve the technological advantage necessary to win the Second World War. And it was here that the department and the Oak Ridge Office of Environmental Management set an ambitious goal for site cleanup, now called Vision 2020. 2020, here we are. This is the day. 20 years later, we join here to celebrate another first, as Jay mentioned. By completing this project, Oak Ridge and its workers have become the first in the world, as was mentioned in the video, to successfully remove a former uranium enrichment complex. And the work that this entailed is simply staggering. The portfolio of cleanup projects included demolishing facilities, as we saw, disposing legacy waste, remediating soil and groundwater. The final piece of Vision 2020 puzzle was to remove more than 500 structures, many of them in terrible condition, as you saw. To put the scale of the building removal in perspective, the buildings that they have taken down could cover 225 football fields. But more important than any one impressive feat of cleanup is the fact that the men and women responsible for the work did it safely. And as Jay pointed out, as the governor pointed out, of equal significance is that they did it on time, actually faster than on time, and under budget. And I tell you, in the federal government, that is a truly staggering accomplishment. I'd like to ask you again to join me in a round of applause to recognize Oak Ridge cleanup workers, past and present, for the work that they have done here. Realizing Vision 2020 is not the finish line, however. We'll also celebrate today the achievements that will impact the future of this region moving forward, as the governor just suggested. We turned what was once an expensive government liability that presented risks to this community and others into an asset that the community can use to usher in new growth into East Tennessee. To date, the DOE has transferred nearly 1,300 acres for economic development. We've established a 3,000-acre conservation area for the public to use and enjoy. And we've set aside more than 100 acres that will share this site's amazing story for future generations as part of the Manhattan Project National Historic Park. In the future, we envision the East Tennessee Technology Park as an incubator for growth in the advanced manufacturing and nuclear technology sectors. These industries will bring jobs and opportunities in fields that will write the next chapter in Oak Ridge history. The cleanup of this site also ushers in the next big phase of Oak Ridge cleanup mission at America's premier national security and research sites, the Oak Ridge National Laboratory and the Y-12 National Security Complex. The Department of Energy remains committed to cleaning and modernizing these sites so that they can remain at the forefront of their fields and answer the call of our nation. But for today, we're going to pause and we're going to mark this significant achievement and what it signifies for Oak Ridge. It's a day to acknowledge our past and this site's place in history, to celebrate our present and the completion of Vision 2020, and to express optimism for the future and the great promise that it holds. I thank everyone who helped make today possible, and I await the next victory to come out of Oak Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. That sounds like a challenge we might take you up on.
It is, Jim.
I certainly feel no introduction that I could give would be sufficient and doesn't do justice to what Senator Alexander means to Oak Ridge's cleanup program. He's a constant supporter and advocate that has been the force that has kept our projects going many times. We simply would not be here without him. It is my great honor to welcome a man who is respected by all, Senator Lamar Alexander.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jay. To the governor and the secretary, Congressman Fleischmann, the mayor, Lieutenant Governor, ladies and gentlemen. First, I talk with Governor Lee regularly.
in this virtual world that we live in now, but I don't see him as often. And I want to use this occasion to just convey the respect I have for the job he's done on helping our state manage COVID-19 and all the challenges that have come with that. That's not an easy job. I think he's done it very well. I think he deserves our respect and support for that. Now, we're here today to help celebrate one more time making history along the Oak Ridge corridor. We know how to do that, from building the bomb that won the war, from the spallation neutron source and other materials, other activities, other great science that's been done here in the past, from first in the world computing, from advanced manufacturing. We know how to make history along the Oak Ridge corridor, but most people don't think about making history by such a big cleanup, which is what we want to call to everyone's attention today. And here are the things that I think are important about it. Number one, what I'd like to congratulate the entire community for, the workers, the managers, everyone here, is for getting a result. You know, Congressman Fleischmann and I appropriate lots of money, or participate in appropriating lots of money for cleanup, environmental cleanup. Each year, the federal government sends about $4.5 billion to Oak Ridge. About half of that goes to the laboratory, a lot goes to the uranium processing facility, but hundreds of millions of dollars every year for environmental cleanup. It happens all around the country at some sites, and the difference between Oak Ridge and the other sites is Oak Ridge finishes the job. Oak Ridge gets it done. I've been in the United States Senate 18 years. I think I could be there another 18 years, and some of these other sites wouldn't get the job done. So thanks for getting a big result. And thanks, as the governor and others said, for doing it on time and on budget. That saves real dollars. The importance also is flat land. I guess one reason the Manhattan Project was here was because this was a lot of flat land, and it's hard to find flat land in East Tennessee. Governors are interested in that because industrial sites often need flat land. I spent a lot of time in the 1980s trying to find 1,000 flat acres for the Toyota plant that eventually went to Kentucky. We couldn't find enough flat land in East Tennessee. Well, you got 2,200 acres of land here that's going from contaminated buildings to flat land mostly, that can be used for industrial development and job. That is an enormous asset, especially in this region of the state. And then it's important to recognize that this represents a transition, not just a big result to tear down the biggest building in the world and get rid of hundreds of buildings of contaminated property. But it means that these workers and the dollars that are appropriated by the federal government can move on to the next project at Y-12. We came down here in 2013 and began work on a mercury treatment facility so that when Y-12 gets torn down, the mercury doesn't run into the water supply and threaten the people around here. So that's done, that's started, and the early success here means we can move faster there at Y-12. There's plenty of work, there are plenty of jobs that'll be there, but you've made it possible to move on to that. I also want to acknowledge the importance of the History Center that's right next to where we are. There are a lot of lives that are affected, and you've heard about some of that today from families that are here. We've taken the time in all of this spending of money and amount of work to build a History Center to reflect those lives and that history. So thank you for inviting me today. I'm proud of what you have accomplished. And it's getting kind of routine, isn't it, to be able to celebrate making history along the Oak Ridge corridor. We're doing it today one more time. Thank you very much.
So another huge supporter of our program is Representative Chuck Fleshman. He's been a strong advocate for the importance of the cleanup mission and helps keep that issue at the forefront through his leadership in the National Cleanup Caucus. We thank you for your belief and passion for the cleanup mission. Please help me welcome Representative Chuck Fleischmann.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Another great day in East Tennessee. Mr. Secretary, welcome. Secretary, welcome. Thank you for putting up with me. Whenever we get together and I talk, I always talk about DOE and Oak Ridge, and what I say, whether it's our great national lab, Y12 UPF, or our cleanup mission, in Oak Ridge, we do it a little bit better or a whole lot better than the rest of the nation. Mr. Secretary, today is proof positive of that again. Thank you, sir. Senator Alexander, thank you. You define the word statesman. I wrote a letter. I don't know if you've read it yet, and I won't tell you all of the contents, but it's quite laudatory. But I said I benefited when you were governor as a constituent. I have benefited infinitely with you as a co-worker, and I thank you, sir. It has truly been an honor to be with you, and it is the reason today that I stand on the Energy and Water Subcommittee of Appropriations, and I am Tennessee's lone appropriator. The reason is that gentleman right there. Senator, thank you. Governor, you were right. I didn't know Bill Lee before he ran for governor, and he's done an exemplary job, but who knew that something called COVID would strike our state, our nation, and Governor, it has been a privilege. This man has worked tireless hours with us as a delegation, Republicans and Democrats in our state, working together to combat this terrible pandemic. Governor, it's a privilege to work with you, and I thank you for being here today. Jay, thank you. You do a tremendous job. And my good Democratic friend, Warren Gooch. And I never let him forget that. We work together. If there is a man who has more of a heart for this city than Warren Gooch, I do not know him or her. So, Your Honor, Mayor, it is a privilege. So that you know, we work together all the time on a host of issues, including this issue today. My comments will be brief today, and a lot has been said, and I'm going to try not to repeat a lot of that. One thing I must repeat, though, before we start. To the men and women, the workers who have toiled hour after hour, sometimes in extremely adverse circumstances, sometimes at great risk, to all of you all, this would not happen today but for your hard work. Let's give the workers another great round of applause. Mr. Secretary, why are things different in Oak Ridge compared to some of the other reasons that we see in other parts of EM cleanup, in cleanup world, in DOE world? I think the answer is simple. We work together at the local level, at the state level with our state legislators and our governor, at the federal level. We work across party lines. We work across House and Senate lines. Tremendous bipartisan and bicameral cooperation. I'll tell you a story. My passion for environmental cleanup is clear, and today is a very special day for a lot of reasons. We won World War II, we won the Cold War, we beat the evil empire known as the Soviet Union. But in order to do that, there was an arms race, and we had to win it. There was a time in America that we were not as careful when we manufactured our nuclear weapons. And those legacy sites are all over the United States, including Oak Ridge. So in my view, the federal government has an obligation to the citizens of this community and in the affected communities to clean these up. We appropriate dollars, billions of dollars, Senator, you're right again. But the way that we use these dollars, the contractor in this case, UCOR. Ken, I want to thank you. Steve Dimitri, thank you, sir. Think about that. They saved $500 million in this task, completed it on time, and got the job done. Thank you. I'll close by saying this. The moral today is when local, state, and federal people work together, when Republicans and Democrats work together, when senators and representatives work together, we can get the job done. And we did. The future here in Oak Ridge, and I saw some of my great friends from the Fourth Estate here today, the future here at Oak Ridge will be bright. Our work is not done. Mr. Secretary, we've got to take over 70 buildings down at ORNL. We have to completely clean up the mercury contamination that we have here. But there will be a day that we will close the book on cleanup. That probably won't be in a decade or two. But when we close that book in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, it will be a better place to live, to raise a family, and to celebrate America. Thank you, and God bless you.
Please join me in welcoming one of our key community partners and the mayor of our wonderful host city, Mr. Warren Gooch.
Thank you, Jay, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a great privilege for me to participate in this program and to be not only on the stage with a distinguished group of Tennesseans and the Secretary of Energy, but all of you in this room, because you all have been great supporters and you've made this day possible. For our friends from Nashville, Washington, Chattanooga, and around East Tennessee, we're glad to have you in the city of Oak Ridge, and we hope you'll come back often. Great things happen in Oak Ridge every day, and today's no exception. We mark yet another historic milestone in the cleanup of the East Tennessee Technology Park. This is especially significant to me because my father was a payroll clerk for J.A. Jones Company, which built K-25. He made many trips to this site before he entered the Army and was wounded during the Pacific Campaign in World War II. On behalf of our 30,000 residents, I express our sincere gratitude and congratulations to Jay Mullis and his team at Oak Ridge Office of Environmental Management, Ken Reuter, and the UCOR team. They've been great stewards of taxpayer money, as we've heard today. And I'll say it one more time for emphasis: under time, under budget. Promises made, promises kept. In fact, as a result of innovative methods and strategic partnerships, UCOR has delivered $1.05 for every dollar of taxpayers' money that has been funded for this cleanup activity. The company's also made $3 million in charitable contributions to our communities, and its employees have served on numerous boards and taken leadership in many civic organizations and civic projects. Oak Ridge and EM's and UCOR's response to COVID-19 and its coordination with the city was exceptional, Mr. Secretary, and it could be a role model for the country. More than 2 decades ago, a committee of local officials and other stakeholders met with DOE and federal and state officials to identify opportunities for cleanup and redevelopment of this site that would bring jobs and economic diversification to Oak Ridge and the region. The committee became known as Partners for Progress. They recognized that intergovernmental partnerships were critical to building community and political support for the enormous amount of highly complex and expensive work that lie ahead. They also recognized that the site would need modern infrastructure services. So in 2006, DOE entered into an agreement with the city of Oak Ridge to begin the transfer of the site's electrical power infrastructure to the city. Shortly thereafter, the Oak Ridge Fire Department began operations in the fire station building to your right. This transfer helped facilitate reindustrialization, support development in West Oak Ridge, and most importantly, save taxpayers millions of dollars while enhancing the efficient delivery of fire protection services to our customers and residents. The city then became the water provider for ETTP. In fact, the city is the sole provider of water for all the DOE facilities, and this is a primary reason that our worn-out 75-year-old water plant must be replaced. The city has also taken responsibility for some streets so that public access is available to current businesses, and it will provide access to the fire station in the future, and also the new K-25 History Center, which is immediately adjacent to us. The theme for today's event, from tear down to turnover, and I suggest the theme moving forward should be from turnover to transformation. I'll mention two initiatives which are underway that have the potential to be transformative to the future of our community in East Tennessee. First is the K-25 History Center, which was opened in February of this year. It will significantly expand our attraction as a regional historical tourism destination as we celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Manhattan Project National Historical Park next month. Second, the city has agreed to the Metropolitan Knoxville Airport Authority's request that Oak Ridge become the responsible sponsoring party for a general aviation airport here at ETTP. With support from our congressional delegation, the state of Tennessee, and grants from the Appalachian Regional Commission, the city is moving forward to make the airport a reality. A general aviation airport has the potential to be transformative by attracting research facilities and industries that want a location near the premier national laboratory in the country that's located in a vibrant, culturally diverse community with a city-owned, nationally award-winning school system. In closing, I want to thank organized labor, and particularly the members of the North American Building Trade Union, who have worked hand in hand with UCOR in the completion of this complex work over the years. I also want to recognize and thank my colleagues on City Council, our City Manager, Mark Watson, and all of our city employees that continue to play a vital role in the transformation of ETTP. I believe that cleanup of legacy waste is a solemn obligation of the United States government. Environmental stewardship and reindustrialization is a testament to the hard work of the thousands of men and women who worked at K-25 over the decades. It is also a powerful reminder to our country that Oak Ridge is never asked to do things which are easy, but to perform the things that are hard and required to protect freedom and to enhance the lives of our fellow Americans. We should all be very proud of our collective efforts over the last 20 years and the local partnerships which have made this day possible and made our nation safer. Thank you very much.
So thank you to all of those who joined us today, both in person and virtually. I'd also like to take a minute to thank our distinguished guests and speakers today. And with that, our ceremony in here is concluded. However, I'd like to invite you to join us for the dedication of a small park right outside. It's Crossroads Common, and we'll have a short ceremony, and then we'll move over to the K-25 History Center for a reception. So if Undersecretary Paul DeBar, Ike White, Senior Advisor to the Undersecretary, Ken Reuter, President and CEO of UCOR, Oak Ridge Mayor Warren Gooch, Roane County Executive Ron Woody, John Vollmer, President and CEO of Amentum, and Steve Demetrio, President and CEO of Jacobs, will join me. I would appreciate it. We're honored to decorate this park to all those who've made history in this footprint. Thank you. Thank you, sir.